Welcome to the Welsh Ribbon Workshop, and in tonight's project we're going to have a go at a bit of spindle turning, but we're going to be using this really unusual material. This is something called Mahonia. So this is classed as a shrub. There's a picture of one up there, and it normally doesn't get this large, so I've never seen a trunk this large before. So it's really unusual material. We're going to see if it turns well, and hopefully we'll get something nice out of this. Now if you do enjoy tonight's project, please support me if you haven't done so already in subscribing to my channel by clicking the link below, and I get more videos like this your way. Hope you enjoy. So I've just trimmed down the sides. We've got two square edges, and I'm amazed with the colour of this. It's like a highlighter yellow. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it between centres. I've got a Robert Sorbet spur centre, and these are brilliant because they've got these little teeth that help drive it and a spring loaded centre. And I'm going to be using a ring centre for the other side, and that just gives you a little bit more support and driving force and acts less like a wedge than splitting your piece apart. So we're going to put it between centres, so roughly mark in the middle, doing that by eye. Lock him off when we're happy, about there. And I can advance the quill then to push this into all those drive-in teeth. Now some people will hammer that sort of driving spur in, especially if you've got a 4-prong spur. I'd recommend that. Now the bark on this is really unusual. It feels like cork, the bark, so quite spongy. So we're going to get rid of that to begin with, then we can move on to turning some shapes in this. Well, I thought with this project what we could do is turn something like this, so just a bit of laburnum this is. So it's going to be a ring stand, so when you're doing your baking or washing the dishes in the kitchen, you can put your wedding ring or engagement ring over the top there to keep them nice and safe. So the tools we're going to be using in tonight's project, we're going to start out with a roughing gouge, and this is to remove the bark and to get this roughly into the round. So we're going to move then on from that. We've got a parting tool, and that's going to be used for making our tenon, so we can hold this in the jaws. We're going to be using a spindle gouge, so a continental sort of grind on this. And we're going to be using, last of all, a skew chisel to do some beads and things like that with this. We'll have a play with it. We're going to make sure that we've definitely got a form of face protection, eye protection and lung protection is essential. Lathe speed all the way down to 0. We're going to rotate the piece round, making sure it's clear in the tool rest. So we're going to start this lower speed. It's nice and tight, that's good. Always a good idea when you turn it on to begin with, stand out the line of fire. Ramp up the speed. Seems about right. So whenever we starting off, we want to put the tool on the tool rest, handle down, nice and close in towards our body, and we're going to be working in to out. It's quite a tough material, this. So how we find the actual cutting point, tool handle down, we're putting this on, so we're rubbing the bevel, so that grinds angle. So it's rubbing the bevel, not cutting at the moment. We lift up. We can see we're getting that sweet spot with the gouge. This is incredible. Look how light and yellow that is. I've never seen anything like that in my life before. That's really cool. I want to keep a little bit of natural edge on this one. So we're going to do one with all yellow, one with a bit of natural edge. I'm going to come in and make a tenon now with a parting tool. Pretty tough stuff, this. Right. Going to need to move my tool rest now, so it's always a good idea. Wow, check this out. Always a good idea to turn the machine off before moving your tool rest. We're going to create a 10 on the other side. This is pretty awesome. Who would have thought it would look like this? Right. So parting tool again. So I've faced off the top, so I've got a flat spot to work from. Now I can put my tenon on now. So I'm feeding this in half the width of the tool. And that gives you a little bit of clearance then for the shavings to clear out. Now to get a really strong hole, so a strong tenon, you're going to need to try and match that to the size of your jaw size, close as you can to the jaws being closed. Now an easy way of doing this, I've got a little outside calipers, just welded on 2 washers to make it a little bit easier to feed through, and I've got that to the correct size I need now because I know that distance has been set to my jaws. So, time to part this into 2. Looking at this, it is absolutely stunning. Look at this colour. I hope this keeps over time. We'll tell. So we've got a little bit of a split in there, which is a bit dodgy. So we're going to try and part that in the middle with our parting tool. So we'll get 2 little blanks out of this because we've got tenons on either end. Now this is always a little bit dangerous because we've got the crack in there. So what we'll probably do is part most of the way through. Then we can use a little saw to cut the full way, just to make it safe. So I've got my groove in there about halfway. I want to come across half the distance of the tool. And I keep stepping backwards and forwards in that cut. And by doing that, these walls won't pinch on the tool then, and it's going to be a lot easier to cut through. So that crack's only about 1 centimetre deep, which is good because we can turn that out. Now, to make this safe, to part this off, just in case the crack does go, we're going to be using a Dozaki, a Japanese sort of cutting saw. And we've got our 2 parts. Now I've never turned anything as bright as this before. Looks like it's been dipped in highlighter fluid. It's pretty cool. So we're going to put this now into the jaws. Finger in the middle, helps center it. Nice and tight. We're running that round, looking at the top of the jaws there to see if we've got any gaps or wobbly bits. Going to give that a good pull. Okay, that's not going anywhere. What we can do, just to give us a little bit more support, when we come to turn this into this ring stand, is to bring the tailstock up. Now a little tip with feeding your tailstock in, the centre point might not be exactly the same now, so it's always good to start it off at slow speed, then feed it in, and it'll re-find the centre then. When it's nice and tight, we can lock him off on the top. So we're going to start off with a spindle gouge, just to get this shape in. Run a little bit of outer true, so I'm just going to true it up with the skew chisel. So I want to only work on 1/3 of the blade, so if I touch the entire blade it's going to snag. So let me show you. So I'm putting it on the tool handle, tool rest like that. We should be getting ribbon like shavings like that if we do it properly. And the coolest thing ever. Right, we can switch back over to our spindle gouge now to make things a little bit easier. So we might shoot for a shape like that or go for something completely different. I'm just going to make it up as I'm going along, no plans in my head. So with my cuts, if you notice, I'm cutting downhill, and that's to allow this cut to be supported. There's fibres underneath, then that I'm going to support the cut. Where if I cut uphill, like that, you can see there. So we're getting some torn out grain by coming up, cutting uphill. Now if you imagine that this piece is like a clench of straws, so like drinking straws. What's happening when you're cutting downhill is you're pushing down on the end of those straws and it's supported, whereas if you're pushing uphill you're sort of tearing those straws apart. I don't know how well the camera's picked that up. Alright, let's keep cutting there.
So I really want to establish the shape of this, so it's looking a bit heavy. I don't just want like a cone type shape because that'd be pretty boring. So I want to make the top look nice and light. So I'm going to do a kind of like a finial type thing. On the top, so I'm just establishing the top edge, cutting a little cove to make this look a little bit lighter, and I'm constantly cutting downhill even with the cove. So I'm finding the bevel of the tool rubbing off, and you can see we've got those long thin stringy shavings coming off, which is a good sign of a sharp tool. Find the bevel pushing the cutting edge all the way along. And I'm going to re-establish this cove, make it a little bit deeper, so I want like a bubble type thing on the top. Blending that in then with the actual shape itself. So I'm pulling slightly towards the piece, the bevel's rubbing, and that'll give me these really thin, stringy shavings. This piece is pretty well seasoned out, so it's quite a hard piece, but you can still get these long, thin, stringy shavings if you've got a sharp tool. So just really refining this sort of finial on the top there. Working downhill, from downhill, and I'm going to blend that in now from the bottom. And these shavings are incredible, the colour coming off.
So this is what, again, I want to go almost like a delicate finial, but I want it to be quite thick. Otherwise, if you go too thin, it's just going to snap when people use this after a certain amount of time. That doesn't look good on you then, if you're going to be selling these on. Having so much fun with this, I think we're going to make this into a ring box, which isn't ideal, because ideally with any boxwood you want the pith gone from the middle, but we'll see how this goes. It's just a little bit of an experiment. Now, I'm quite happy with the finish I've got on there. It's literally silky smooth. We're going to make that into the lid, I think. So we can afford to part it off there. Let's take this end bit off and we can finish that off with the skew. Yeah, like that. Right. So roll in a slight bead now where this section's going to come off. So I'm going to make this ring stand into a lid. I'm going to be using a knife parting tool to part this off. So if you didn't have one of these, you could do the same with the wider parting tool. The advantage over the knife parting tool is you're going to get a better grain mat, and obviously it doesn't take as much material away. So I've gone across about 5mm, and that's going to be a good hold for that. I'm going to come across 1 more millimetre. Now, I'm going to roll my bead in now. Just matching the profile as they come together, it'll sit nicely. Now I haven't got an opportunity, because I was originally, if I was going to do a box, I'd have a tenon, finish the inside and then move it round. Because I've changed my mind on the go, I'm going to undercut this. So I'm just sanding from underneath. Ideally you should have an extractor hooked up, so you're sucking up all the fine sawdust. I'm keeping the sandpaper constantly moving. If I keep it in one spot for too long, you're going to put scratches in. Pretty smooth, I like that. I'm going to go up and go up to a smoother grip. Obviously, the smoother you sand this, the finer the finish you're going to get. Word of warning, if you're putting things like lacquers and things on, you only really need to go up to about 240 in my opinion, otherwise it doesn't impregnate the wood as well, I found. So we're going to be using a cellulose sanding sealer to seal in the lid. So cellulose, if I got this right, I think it's suspended chalk, but this is really good stuff. It seals up the grains, and your finish then goes on top of that, which looks pretty nice. A second coat. Now we're going to cut this back. So you normally let this soak in and cut it back. You can do this with sandpaper. Because I got a pretty smooth finish, I can actually use the friction of the paper towel to cut this back or denib it. See where we're going. So quite a nice finish on that, really silky smooth. So we're going to go with a shellac type friction polish. Again, Chestnut's the brand if anyone's interested. I really like using their products. I'm not sponsored by them in any way, but I just think they're really good quality. I had really good luck with them throughout my years of turning. So a tiny bit on, using the paper towel again as a friction buffer to buff this guy up. I'm going to add a tiny bit more as it's spinning. There we go. Lovely yellow colour coming through this. So I don't know how well the camera's picking that up, but we've got a really smooth, nice shiny finish on this, but not too shiny that it takes the distraction away from the piece. Right, next thing. Going to continue to underpart this. By doing that bead that we've rolled, we'll just help the tool come in. Oh. I'm going to hold on to the outside of this. Okay, part it off. You see we've got that little button then at the bottom we can deal with later on. You'll note when I put this back on over the top, I've got a little ridge in there, only about 1mm, but to the same diameter as this outside ring. And that's going to be my reference point for when I come to doing the next sort of step. So I'm going to face this off now with a thicker parting tool, make this nice and flat, and we can go from there. So I'm going to establish where the bottom of the box is going to be. I've done that with my parting tool, and later on then I can undercut with my knife parting tool to help me get this guy off. Shape looks a little off, so we're going to roll a bead on the bottom. A little bit more of a curve, I think. Okay. Now this is why I like using skews, especially on spindle, well, only on spindle work, because you get a lovely smooth finish. So that feels like a sanded finish already. I haven't done anything to this, so it's pretty nice. Right, we're going to work. I've got the outside sort of shape sorted. I'm going to be parting it off there. We're going to work then. So it looks a little bit oriental, this box now, on getting the inside. Now it's really important amongst wood turners to get a nice tight fit. That's something we really get excited over. If you were making loads of these for the public, I know a lot of people don't really care about that click, so if you're making it to sell, don't worry about it too much. Right, we're going to drill out now to the depth we want to go, and we can hollow this out slowly, getting closer to the edge. So it's a good idea to mark on your forced a bit how deep you're going to go so you don't get too carried away. I've lost count of how many times I've done that in the past. Cool. So we've got to our mark now. Always really important to note that this is going to be very hot, so you don't want to keep that in and burn yourself on it. Always a good idea to take him out. In fact, we don't need the rest of this, so take it off even. And it'll give us a little bit more room to work on the inside of this. So this is the bit where it proves to be a little bit patient to get a good fit with this. So we're going to work our way back slowly. Just going to be using a parting tool. Now this is end grain we're cutting into, which is always a little bit tricky, so we just need to take our time. Okay, so I've gone in about 5mm. I'm stepping my cut, creeping up to that little line I put on, but it's always good to check. Yeah, about 5 more millimeters to go. We're going to creep slowly up to that line. That's on there. It's a little bit too tight, so tighten a bit more again. This is the nerve-wracking part now. This is where they can all go too loose. back to that ridge. Now that ridge was the same diameter as the outside that we parted off. So that's what I'm working back to. Yes, it's got that sucking sort of popping noise. So a true test of how tight it is whether it'll spin really tightly without any sort of vibration. And if we pop, oh, it's brilliant. Now if you did go a little bit too too far, what you can do is you can put a bit of tissue towel in there if you needed to return this, make a jam chuck or anything. That's worked in the past for me. Better. Right, hollow it out the inside. So I've got my wall established, top of the lid, use my parting tool. So I've gone in a little bit now, so if I get a catch or a miss that, I'm far away from that edge, so it's not going to affect the joint. Learned that from hard experience. So what I'm looking for is like a nice even wall thickness throughout. Smooth them out on the bottom. I don't want a little pimple. I feel it with my fingers across the centre point, but the slightest little ridge in the centre. I want to get rid of that to make it look nice. Then we can start the sanding process. Okay, finished with the scraping. We're going to be ready to do the sanding now. So what I use for my sanding is I've got this little device I made. You wrap the sandpaper around in the opposite way to the lathe is turning. You just put your finger on it then, turn them on, and you can squeeze that in to do your sanding. You don't want to put your fingers inside anything. If it catches, you can break your finger off. So I just prefer this method. It's literally just a little block I can hold on to into the end. A little bit of a curve there. Just allow the paper to wrap around nice and neatly. And because you've got that curve in the design, it's easier to go around the curves at the bottom of the box. Finger on the back like so. So we can start adding now the cellulose sanding sealer over the top. I can use my stick, wrap around the paper towel to do the inside. Okay, so we've got a design opportunity here. The bottom of this is just disintegrated, so we've got a little hole in the bottom. So I had an idea. We do a little bit more spindle work and we can turn a mini ring stand maybe on the inside. So I've got a little bit of a spindle blank I've just cut, and we'll have a go at doing that. So just doodling now with the skew, so getting the shape I want. So I'm just going to roll a bead round, so I've got a nice round edge. It was a bit thick, so I'm going to take that back a little bit more. And I'm going to slim down, so make like a stem that this ring stand can go on. Just establishing the top shape first. Yeah, happy with that. Right, so I can use the skew now to cut downhill again, so push cuts and cutting downhill for this little ring stand that we're going to put in the middle. So notice I've got my tool canted to the side slightly, and I'm only using 1/3 to cut. And the hool tool's not catching, because that's when you're going to get a snag. I'm going to roll a slight bead again on the bottom, slimming that down a little bit to make the proportions look right.
and I'm using the hole in the bottom as a gauge then to how slim I need to get this. I should be getting some burn marks. You start to see it slightly on the top there, so I want to go down until it fits really tightly. Yep, that's it, I think. So we're going to start establishing now where we're going to need to part this off. Roll a little bead in the bottom. Let's blend this in a little bit more. There we go. Right, I'm going to part that off with my knife parting tool after I sanded it now. And I'll be able to use that interference fit to get this sticking in the bottom of the box with a bit of glue. And that should solve that whole problem in the bottom of the box there. So this is the aftermath after turning. I've never had any shavings quite like this. Luminous yellow, so they look like they've been sort of dipped in fluorescent paint or something. So really cool. Not turned anything quite like that before. So it's this lovely luminous yellow type colour. Hopefully it'll keep that as it ages. So the wood itself then, the really tight lid on the top, it's not really the most ideal of boxwoods to turn. As I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure the pith is out of the wood, and ideally you've got no cracks like this running through your piece. So I've got the lid then itself, so that lovely suction pop noise. And to combat the hole with the crack in the bottom, I've turned another ring stand, and you can see that through the crack. So it sort of makes a little feature of it, which is quite nice. So pretty fun project. It'd be interesting to hear your views of the colour and the shape of this in the comments. Really appreciate all of you watching till the end. Please, if you haven't already, can you subscribe to my channel by clicking the link below, as that really supports me. It's free, but allows me to get more videos like this your way. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da.